begin the next item on our program of work. So I kindly ask the delegations at the back of the room to take their seats or stay quiet. The forum will now hear the National Voluntary Review by Jamaica, and I have the honor to invite His Excellency Pernell Charles, Jr., Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, to make the presentation. Excellency, you have the floor.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chairman. Permit me to introduce Team Jamaica. With me today, to my direct right, is Ambassador Courtney Rattray, our permanent representative here to the United Nations. We have to his right Mr. Sam Davis, the Director of Government and Regulatory Affairs from the Jamaica Public Service. That's our electricity utility service in Jamaica. We would like to adopt the ladies to his immediate right, but you know them already. Mr. Dr. Wayne Henry is the Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica. And to his right, you'll see Miss Leisha Delatie-Budair, who is our Deputy Director General of the Statistical Institute of Jamaica. Then we have Miss Tony Shea Freckleton from the Planning Institute of Jamaica. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Jamaica is pleased to present its first voluntary National Review report on its efforts to implement the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda. We represent a dynamic nation populated by a people of great resilience. And we are fully committed to realizing the Jamaica we want by 2030, leaving no one behind. The journey is filled with challenges, but we are inspired by the profound statement of one of our national heroes, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who said, "Progress is the attraction that moves humanity." Please enjoy this video.
I do have a dream, and I know you have a dream, that we can make Jamaica the place of choice for you to choose to live, to work, to do business.
We are going for the Jamaica we want. Making steady progress to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in our National Development Plan, Vision 2030 Jamaica. We have teamed up with valued partners, working through strong institutions to reduce inequalities in our society. We commit to being responsible in our production and consumption, ensuring we build sustainable communities in harmony with nature. Jamaica is making significant strides in providing quality, lifelong education for all, enabling our people to be engaged in decent work to drive economic growth, equipping men and women with the skills to build resilient infrastructure, promote sustainable industry, foster innovation, and utilize new technologies. Urgent action is being taken to manage natural resources responsibly, protecting clean water sources, ensuring access to water and sanitation for all, diversifying to alternative energy sources, conserving our environment, and sustaining life below water and on land. Jamaica is making moves to ensure healthy lifestyles for the well-being of our people. We're promoting sustainable agriculture to achieve food security, improve nutrition, and end extreme hunger, putting in the work to end poverty in all its forms. We're on track in achieving our sustainable development goals through realizing our Vision 2030 Jamaica. We will leave no one behind.
And I'm chilling right now because we're winning right now.
It makes you want to dance, right? In my introduction, I omitted Professor Aldry Henry Lee. And that is because in Jamaica we leave the best for last. She's our university director from the University of West Indies, Mona. I know that you enjoyed our video. The successful implementation of the SDGs requires long-term planning within the framework of development strategies that supersede the finite cycle of political regimes. In 2009, we created our National Development Plan, Vision 2030 Jamaica, an insightful, strategic, and practical roadmap designed to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. Like the 2030 Agenda, Vision 2030 Jamaica reflects 3 dimensions of sustainable development and is built on 4 goals. 1, empowerment of Jamaicans to achieve their fullest potential. 2, creation of a secure, cohesive, and just Jamaican society. 3, development of a prosperous Jamaican economy. 4, promotion of a healthy natural environment. Vision 2030 Jamaica, therefore, serves as the axis around which implementation of the 2030 Agenda is organized. In fact, the medium-term socio-economic policy framework, which is reviewed in 3-year cycles and through which Vision 2030 Jamaica is implemented, is fully aligned with the Agenda 2030. The UNDP Mainstreaming Acceleration and Policy Support Assessment recognizes a 91% alignment between Jamaica's national planning framework and the SDGs. Therefore, by implementing the priorities set out in the MTF, we will simultaneously be implementing Agenda 2030. Jamaica has been formulating policies and implementing programs and projects in an integrated and cross-cutting manner. This calls for not only a whole government approach, but also a whole of society approach. The establishment and composition of a National 2030 Agenda Oversight Committee is reflective of our multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder approach to the delivery of the SDGs. In particular, the youth, who play a critical role as custodians of Vision 2030 Jamaica and the SDGs. We will continue to focus on harnessing the demographic dividend to invest in young people. Thematic working groups, which guide the implementation of Vision 2030 Jamaica, also reflect the whole of society approach to the attainment of the sustainable development for all. We also believe that the successful implementation of the 2030 Agenda and our own Vision 2030 Jamaica calls for a process of accountability for goals and targets by government as well as by the people, including children and youth. Undoubtedly, we have made commendable strides in the country's implementation of both Vision 2030 Jamaica and Agenda 2030. A summary of the progress made under the framework of the National Outcome Indicators and Targets for Vision 2030 Jamaica shows that at the end of 2017, 67.2% of the total indicators have shown improvement over the baseline year 2007. As a small island developing state, however, we are still faced with significant challenges, given our economic, environmental, and social vulnerabilities, narrow natural resource base, and limited institutional capacity. Additionally, we are frequently adversely impacted by extreme weather events, which severely retard our development prospects. Development financing also remains a major challenge for Jamaica. We are burdened by a high debt to GDP ratio, and our designation as an upper middle income country has precluded us from receiving certain types of aid and concessionary financing for development programs. In particular, access to financial solutions for climate disaster risks is of critical importance, given our vulnerabilities as a SIDS. Although the Addis Ababa Action Agenda provides the framework for financing Agenda 2030, we grapple with identifying practical ways to mobilize resources to drive our ambitious, sustainable development agenda. Jamaica, through its engagement with a group of friends of the SDGs financing, has been seeking to mobilize institutional capital from the private sector for various priority projects. Strategic resource mobilization is therefore required towards the identification of new, non-traditional and innovative financing modalities. We remain concerned about inadequate access to high-quality data, which is a critical requirement for making Agenda 2030 a reality. We cannot overstate, therefore, the importance of capacity building to support the strengthening of data systems and producing high-quality disaggregated data. We recognize that the development agenda is complex and requires coordination among public and private sectors, international development partner community, as well as also coordination with civil society, organizations, and other major groups.
In partnership with the UNDP, we developed a roadmap for implementation of the SDGs in Jamaica. The roadmap articulates key issues utilizing the MAPS tool. A key element of the roadmap is our prioritization of transformative actions that can simultaneously drive progress across multiple goals and targets through a set of accelerators. These include social protection outreach to those furthest behind, multidisciplinary efforts to tackle the drivers of NCDs, strengthening the effectiveness of the judicial system, violence prevention programs, building disaster risk resilience, and advancing the development of the blue and green economies. We can already report many successes, including macroeconomic stability, sustained improvement in labor market outcomes, greater social inclusion, and strengthened intersectoral linkages. However, in planning for the medium term, of special concern to Jamaica is the potential impact of hazard events, having regard to dislocation of population, disruption of livelihoods, and damage and losses, which have historically been equivalent to 1 to 2% of GDP per annum. We have come to realize, therefore, that our climate must be more deliberately factored across all dimensions of sustainable development planning. Jamaica also recognizes that critical to the advancement of the National Development Agenda is the promotion of increased institutional coordination at the national and subnational levels for policy coherence, coupled with targeted communication and advocacy, particularly for vulnerable groups, including persons with disabilities, the elderly, and women and children. We are committed to ensuring that no one is left behind. Over the next 3 years, therefore, some of the transformational programs and projects that Jamaica will implement as key components of our medium-term framework are to, 1, develop an innovative national spatial plan to ensure the optimal use of the nation's land and marine resources and outline the framework for their effective use and management, along with addressing issues regarding climate change and advancing the blue economy. 2, improve risk identification and a reduction in vulnerability in 8 coastal communities. 3, strengthen our fiscal responsibility framework to secure gains already achieved through the economic reform and fiscal discipline. 4, establish science and technology parks as a critical nexus between business and science. 5, enhance the capacity of communities to participate in creating a safe and secure society. And 6, implement the National Financial Inclusion Strategy to increase the access, knowledge, and usage of financial services to the underserved population. The implementation of these priorities by the Government of Jamaica will require the continued support of key local and global partners, which will be critical to the achievement of stronger and more inclusive growth. Jamaica remains committed to leading the charge to advance Vision 2030 Jamaica and Agenda 2030, and welcomes the support of our partners in our quest to achieve the Jamaica we all want.
We welcome the fact that the 2030 Agenda has reignited the discussion on the importance of data. It has reinforced the fact that official statistics are vital to analysis, proper planning, and decision-making. It also reinforces the importance of all members of the national statistics system working together in a cohesive way to produce high-quality statistics to monitor progress towards achieving the Jamaica we want. Recognizing this, the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, STATIN, is championing the requisite legislative and institutional reforms to improve coordination for the production of official statistics. In preparation for this review, baseline indicators on the SDGs were produced and are presented in our statistical annex. We are proud to announce that Jamaica's NSS was able to produce approximately 49% of the indicators as defined by the Interagency and Expert Group on the SDGs, including 12% proxies. This is above the sub-regional average and exceeds our expectation, as in 2016, when we did our assessment, we anticipated 30%. Many of the indicators provided have also been disaggregated, and efforts are ongoing to improve disaggregation, having regard, in particular, to the situation of the most vulnerable in our society. This baseline report also features geospatial information and includes the use of advanced techniques and technologies for data gathering, such as satellite imagery, administrative data, and small area estimation. There is, however, a lot more to be done to improve official statistics in Jamaica. The greatest paucity of indicators exists in the domain of environmental statistics. In other domains, some indicators are dated, and several key surveys have not been conducted in recent years due to lack of funding. Additionally, as our population ages, there is need to rebuild and sustain the institutional knowledge through training and capacity building for young statisticians. As we look ahead, with the support of the national and international partners, Jamaica's national statistics system will continue to be guided by the fundamental principles of official statistics, effectively informing policy and decision-making.
We reiterate the call for the international community to create an enabling environment at all levels to support this sustainability agenda in the true spirit of global partnership. These partnerships require appropriate technology transfer and innovation, capacity building, exchange of best practice, as well as access to adequate, affordable, and appropriately designed financing. We also call on members of the international community to ensure that the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is supported in its entirety. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my country is firmly committed to advancing this shared global agenda to contribute to a better world, one in which there is peace, equity, prosperity, partnership, and importantly, a healthy natural environment. Jamaica has begun the journey with the commitment of leaving no one behind as we go for the goals. We thank you.
I thank His Excellency Colonel Charles Jr. and Team Jamaica for the presentation. I now invite delegations to have an interactive dialogue with the presenting country. But before I give the floor to the first speaker, I would like to once again remind delegations to observe the time limit of 2 minutes for each intervention. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Italy.
Thank you, Chair, and we congratulate the delegation of Jamaica for their very fruitful presentation. Setting up the implementation process for SDGs is important, as well as monitoring and reviewing the efforts done to ensure that the process is well on track. To this end, it appears that Jamaica is placing a lot of attention and efforts on improving the national statistical system. What specifically has Jamaica been doing to improve the system to effectively monitor the SDGs and its targets? And also, what was the biggest challenge in achieving your statistical objectives? Thank you.
I thank the representative of Italy for his intervention. I now invite the distinguished permanent representative of Greece to make an intervention.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, allow me to congratulate on my part Jamaica for this excellent presentation. And my question is the following. As small island developing state, what do you see as challenges for Jamaica and the region in accessing financing for implementation of the SDGs? Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Greece for her intervention, and I now invite the representative of Norway to make an intervention.
Thank you. Norway has read the VNR submitted to the HLPF 2018. We congratulate the government of Jamaica with this achievement and like to offer some comments and pose a question. We commend Jamaica for successfully submitting an upbeat and proactive VNR to the HLPF 2018. We enjoyed the tenor of the report and understand that it is founded in strong national ownership to the SDGs. Furthermore, the model of institutionalization of the 2030 Agenda within the Jamaica We Want Vision 2030 Jamaica is an approach to be replicated by others. Your VNR is not shy of the challenges, such as climate, external shock, and high level of indebtedness. In your view, what can be the 2030 Agenda with the SDGs offer to allow your government to build an even more resilient Jamaica? Thank you.
I thank the representative of Norway, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Liberia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also like to thank the team from Jamaica for the presentation. It was very extensive and provided a lot of broad areas in terms of what they are doing to achieve on their agenda. I would like to pick up a point from the presentation which they mentioned about becoming a middle-income country being a challenge for them in terms of raising funding for other programs, especially from the aid perspective. I would like to find out what lessons have you learned from becoming a middle-income country so that those who are still struggling to become middle-income country can learn from you if you were to repeat that process. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Liberia for his intervention, and I now invite the women's major group to make an intervention.
Honorable Moderator, distinguished delegates, thank you for the floor. Today, I speak on behalf of and represent vulnerable and marginalized communities, including groups such as grassroots women, LGBTI people, people living with disabilities, and young people. We are interested in influencing the way the SDGs are being implemented nationally by promoting a community-driven implementation approach. As Jamaica commits to leaving no one behind, as mentioned in the localization of the SDGs, We urge you to ensure that Jamaica fulfills its commitment to ensuring that Vision 2030, making Jamaica a place of choice to live, raise families, work, and do business, is a reality for even the most vulnerable and marginalized groups of people. We are committed to the phrase, the Jamaica we want, Vision 2030, Jamaica advancing SDGs and leaving no one behind. We are proud to be representing our members' priorities and promoting the important and ongoing work being done as we represent vulnerable and marginalized groups. In the implementation of Agenda 2030, we seek to secure the recognition for community-led action in order to ensure Jamaica's transformation towards sustainability and resilience. By nature, vulnerable and marginalized people are resilient. Grassroots women, LGBTI people, young people, people living with disabilities are resilient. And as a community and people invested in realizing Vision 2030, we invite the Jamaican government to meaningfully engage us in realizing a sustainable nation. And to this end, I have two questions. What are the plans to ensure funding, resources, and other partnership opportunities are given to NGOs, in particularly grassroots women and other vulnerable groups, such as LGBTI people and youth organizations, to implement programs on the ground? Additionally, can you share some useful strategies that will promote an integrated development approach that links disaster risk reduction, climate action, and the empowerment of women and other marginalized groups such as LGBTI people? Thank you.
I thank the representative from Women's Major Group for their intervention. And I now invite the representative of Singapore to make an intervention. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam President. Singapore congratulates Team Jamaica for undertaking its voluntary national review and the excellent presentation. As a fellow cit, Singapore fully appreciates Jamaica's vulnerability to external shocks such as climate change and economic fluctuations. Could the delegation share more on Jamaica's policies to foster resilience? How are these plans aligned with the 2030 agenda and Jamaica's national level frameworks? Prioritizing stakeholder engagement through an integrated national level communications plan is a key factor behind successful SDG implementation. In order to assure that we leave no one behind, how will Jamaica's Communications and Advocacy Roadmap 2018-2021 be implemented in order to publicize the SDGs and engage all segments of society? What specific actions are taken by the government to prepare the public service for implementation of the SDGs? Thank you very much.
Thank the representative of Singapore for his question. We have three speakers remaining. I want to encourage you now to make your intervention in less than 2 minutes. You have 1 minute each, please. I now invite the distinguished representative of Denmark.
Thank you. First, I wish to congratulate the government of Jamaica on presenting its VNR also as one of the first countries in the Caribbean region. It's very impressive. We've seen that each country presenting a VNR so far have unique challenges regardless of size and wealth, but also that there are many shared challenges and many opportunities to learn from each other. And we acknowledge also that there can be special challenges when it comes to capacity and resources for small states, as also mentioned by some of the representatives of Jamaica. And this goes for other processes in the UN as well. It's extremely important that the participation in the HLPF is broad and inclusive, and because we need to hear from all perspectives, and we need to hear all ideas and approaches to the 2030 agenda. And in this regard, we wish to thank Jamaica for, together with other CARICOM countries here in New York, to engaging with the Denmark and the other Nordic countries in a bigger cooperation here on the implementation of the 2030 agenda, with the aim of ensuring an active participation. An active engagement in the follow-up and review process from all types of countries, including small countries and small island developing states. And finally, I just want to ask Jamaica what some of the what some of the key lessons learned from preparing this VNR are, as well as how other small states might be able to learn from this. Thank you.
I thank Denmark for her question, and I now invite Austria.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the Team Jamaica for the presentation. I will be extremely brief. I have a quick question. What is Jamaica doing to improve policy coherence and institutional capacity building for the implementation of the SDGs? Thank you.
I thank you, and I now give the floor to the final stakeholder, Sendai stakeholders, to make an intervention.
In order to ensure government accountability, it is important to be aware of commitments made. This was missing with the MDGs. For us, this means that the SDGs are reflected across cutting issues and the language used in inclusive and diverse. This also means that the government of Jamaica should continue to build partnership with local groups, work strategically with civil society organizations to ensure that the shrinking space do not close. The innovation of expertise coming from the experience and knowledge of women in all their diversities are essential to the creation of effective and inclusive development. Questions: what are the plans to develop risk management finance strategies to make it more accessible to local community actors to scale up and replicate good community-led practices? Thank you.
I thank other stakeholders for her intervention, and I now invite His Excellency Pernell Charles, Jr. to briefly respond to the questions, or any member of your Team Jamaica panel. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. I think our first question was in relation to data, and I'll ask the lead from Statin to respond to that question.
Thank you, Minister Charles. Very quickly, we have been undertaking a process of legislative reform to improve the Statistics Act and also to strengthen our national statistics system. So last year, with support from Paris 21, we undertook an assessment of Jamaica's national statistics system, and that will inform the national strategy for the development of statistics. We also got support from UNDP to conduct some data quality workshops with ministries, departments, and agencies in order to improve the quality of official statistics in Jamaica. Additionally, we have set up a subcommittee of the National Oversight Committee on the SDGs on data and monitoring, and that is being led in collaboration with the Cabinet Office to help to ensure that we're monitoring not just the statistics, but also that we're looking at the program and policy implementation. In terms of our challenges, the biggest challenge that we face with regards to statistics is mobilizing funding for the collection of data. As was indicated in our presentation, we're classified as an upper middle income country, but we also have a high debt burden which constrains our domestic resources. And as such, the biggest challenge is mobilizing resources for the production of official statistics in Jamaica. Thank you.
And just to quickly follow that, the questions that flowed from our colleagues from Greece and a part of the question from Liberia also spoke to the categorization as a middle-income country. As you heard Ms. Delatie-Budair say, we are designated as middle income, which precludes us from certain types of aid and concessionary financing, which we need, particularly because of our unique vulnerability to natural disasters and to the impact of climate change, most of which is not caused by these small island developing states like Jamaica. So when you couple the difficulties we have in access due to the categorization with our high debt burden, what you have is a major challenge which limits our ability to invest in the SDGs and in the capital projects that are needed and essential for economic growth. So I believe that answers, Chair, also Greece and a part of the Liberia question. I would ask our lead, Director General from PIOJ, to move to the next question.
All right, thank you very much. Let me speak to building resilience. our Vision 2030 Jamaica, Goal 4 of Vision 2030 speaks of Jamaica having a healthy natural environment. And outcome 14 of that goal speaks to hazard risk reduction and climate change adaptation and set those as national priorities. And so we've been doing quite a bit in terms of building resilience. We have a climate change adaptation policy in place. We have a hazard mitigation policy. We have a Disaster Risk Management Act. There is a National Disaster Risk Management Council, an NDRMC, which is chaired by the Prime Minister and cascades down to the local levels, the parish development committees, parish disaster committees, right at the local level. We have a climate change division in government, which is tasked with, along working in partnership with other ministries, departments, and agencies, of coordinating the disaster risk response in terms of planning for the planning framework. There's quite a bit that's going on. We have a climate change advisory board, which includes civil society along with public and private sector, with the youth are represented there, academia is represented. So quite a few activities are ongoing in building resilience in the country. The question was asked about financing and getting it down in terms of disaster risk reduction to the community level. There have been ongoing activities through what we call our Social Development Commission, or SDC, to implement our local sustainable development plans. That's at the community level, and SDC have been working in the communities to establish and to coordinate the local sustainable development plans for the communities. And we've started that in a few parishes in Jamaica. We have 14 parishes. We've started that in about 5 parishes, and we are gleaning lessons learned and hope to replicate that throughout the rest of the island. And so that would include at the community level and persons, the vulnerable persons, grassroots women, etc., that are being included. And so if I can, through Minister, speak quickly to policy coherence. Our vision, as you heard, Vision 2030 is being implemented through what we call our medium-term socio-economic policy frameworks, MTFs, and it's being implemented and monitored through an indicator framework system. And we have thematic working groups, TWGs, that involve both public and private sector, again, civil society, youth, are represented in the stakeholders in these thematic working groups, which helps in policy coherence. And so that's a priority for us in the short and medium term. We are building capacity in policy integration. We are hoping to have, before the year is out, with some help from UNDESA, a workshop, a national workshop for across ministries, departments, agencies, to build capacities to individuals to build along the lines of policy coherence.
We could go on, but because of time constraint, I just want to quickly move to answer in a very broad way the remaining questions, which spoke to plans to ensure funding and also plans to develop engagement. Let me indicate that for Jamaica, we have prioritized the engagement with a multi-stakeholder and multi-sector approach. The Prime Minister himself launched the National Sustainable Development Goal Public Education Campaign, the Jamaica We Want, Vision 2030 Jamaica, advancing the SDGs, leaving no one behind. That is coupled with our efforts to broaden the engagement across government, across all of the relevant agencies, across the women's and grassroots organizations, across trade unions, schools, local government, community-based groups. We also have the SDG Champion program in Jamaica, which is coupled with the SDG Roadshow, which began on the World Population Day, July 11th. And it is delivering promising results. So we're utilizing many different mechanisms to engage our society. Though we can't guarantee specific funding to particular groups, what we hope to do is to be able to empower and to educate and to make and to bring awareness so that groups are able to access funding. And it also flows to the first discussion we had as to our own ability to access large financing, which we hope will flow down to all of our partners being all of the agencies and individuals in Jamaica. I invite persons for us to have discussions thereafter, because my time was up about 10 minutes ago. And I thank you so much for your questions, and I thank you, Chair, for your indulgence, and I thank all of the persons who have contributed to this, Ambassador and everyone on the Team Jamaica. One love.
I thank His Excellency Pernell Charles Jr. and Team Jamaica for the presentation and all of those delegations that have contributed this afternoon. We will once again pause very briefly now because we are running into overtime, and to allow for changes at the podium for the next VNR.